What's good, good people? Welcome to My Be More project, What's the 410, where we're standing in the gap of the news you can use and the positive stories that your spirit needs. I'm your host, Dion Joyner Weems. It's like a Tribe Called Quest. You got to say it all together. And I wear many hats, but they all sit on top of the same mission: to amplify, uplift, and empower Baltimore's change makers and truth tellers to own their story. Through hashtag My Be More project, my book, That Part What Some Know But Won't Tell You About Motherhood, or as the Chief Energy Officer of Audacity Group, I share bold stories of impact. And back in 2022, we held a listening session that confirmed what you and I already know. People trust people more than they do a system. And that's why we're creating a space to center the voices on the ground doing the work, like Ashley Esposito, Executive Director of Baltimore Unity Hall. Let's bring her up. Hey, Ash.
Hey.
Okay, my people, I'm going to give you a little background, okay? So everyone listen up. And Ash, I need you to take these flowers, okay? You ready? Ashley Esposito, better known as Ash, is a dynamo in every sense of the word. She's a Southwest Baltimore resident, a proud city schools mom, and as a mother of three, respect. And the kind of public servant, she doesn't show up for titles. She shows up with lived experience, heart, and hustle. Before taking her seat on the Baltimore City School Board, Ash was already doing the work, mentoring students, serving on principal panels, and advocating for children who too often get overlooked by the system. But today, we're not just talking about her journey. We're talking about her role now as the Executive Director of Baltimore Unity Hall. Ash, how you doing?
Good. It's a happy Tuesday. I feel
Happy
good.
Tuesday. All right. Now, before we get into the interview questions, we like to give folks a taste of the personality behind the position. So we call this They Ate. Okay, so we're going to ask you 8 rapid fire questions, which you cannot overthink. You just got to go hot. You ready?
Okay, I got it.
1, 2, 3. Crab cake, fried or boiled?
Fried.
Boom. Nickname your parents or friends used to call you?
Ashams.
Ashams, I love it. Sorry. All right. Name one song on your Get Pumped, Amped, Fired Up playlist. What you putting on, Ash?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna be embarrassed with this one. Bootyzilla.
Bootyzilla, yes! All right. All right, boom. Scale of 1 to 10. How good are you at twerking?
Oh. You know what? My knees aren't that great, so I'll give myself a 2.
Would you respect on the knees, woman? Respect on the knees. Would you survive a zombie apocalypse?
Absolutely.
Damn right. First job you ever had?
Cinnabon.
Cinnabon, perfect. Is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat animal crackers?
Oh, yes.
Love it. Controversy. If you had 25 hours in a day, what would you do with that extra hour?
Beading.
What is that?
I make beaded earrings.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will be bringing you back for us to talk about beading.
Yes.
With that note, we're going to jump into our questions. As the Executive Director of Baltimore Unity Hall, you are fostering a sacred space. Ash, is a sacred space on the West Side that's quickly becoming a heartbeat for creativity, connection, and collaboration. How is it possible for you to lead with love?
First of all, when I came into trying to get the job, I already loved the space. I was in the space as an artist I was a photographer for the Black Arts District. I had been here for vision board parties, for rites of passage, and different events. And so I kept coming back to the space. And I remember I had come here for a vision board party, and at the time I was super stressed. And I left just feeling so rejuvenated. And so as an artist, as a community weaver, and somebody that likes like nerding out on like operations and data and fundraising and things like that. It was wild to me that I could possibly like do all those things in one role. And so I have like a super deep commitment to the space and the way that the other thing that I wanted to bring into the space is really have it be like a healing space. And so even when we face situations where like, maybe the space is misused or there's an incident in the space, like I do believe that what happens in the space like imprints on the space. So I've also tried to incorporate like a restorative practice in people feeling personal responsibility to preserving and keeping the space safe. So I don't know how I'm doing all these things. I have ADHD, so it has served me well because I like doing so many things. Yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing, the fact that you're creating a community space from the inside out. Like
Yeah.
the direction seems different than I've seen with a public or community space. Can you talk about your way or method of doing that?
I think when I came in, I really wanted to get a better understanding of the people that were already using the space. And I think by doing that, when I recognized that like there were some vacancies in like the artist studios and, when we were thinking about like, how do we get coworkers in here? Like, I think who was already in the space kind of drove like how I framed soliciting more people to come into the space to make sure that they like vibed well.
Mm-hmm.
And also like relying on relationships with people. So people like, for example, like one of our artists that I got in when I first started here, she got in here, she loved it. And then she brought two of her friends. And so it's like they were already in community with each other. I didn't have to like try to force, relationships or even, there's two people from my community that heard I was here and then became coworkers and now they're collaborating with other people. And, so it's like there's all these like intersecting relationships or like 1 degree of separation between people in the space. So I think that also has like made it very like relationships focused. And I mean, when I came in, a lot of our event rentals and even how we've like amplified event rentals has been like word of mouth. And I think sometimes like we forget how powerful that is as a tool. So that's what I've like relied on a lot. And just, like reaching back out to people that I'm already in community with and being like, hey, we're doing this thing. Like, how would you like to support? How can we plug you in? And it's been really, really amazing to just see like the people that have, are new to the space or have been here like forever that are really like committed to making sure it's sustainable.
You hit on something as a marketer, and I was having a conversation with my boys about this, how in this day and age where people are curating and positioning and marketing all of the time, it's difficult to find the authenticity,
Right.
which is why I believe word of mouth is a marketing tool that is become overlooked. And that's where the heart lies. So I'm curious, it feels like you're creating, because how long have you been in this position?
I've been here a year, but yeah, and it's so wild because there's some people that are like, I feel like you've been here forever.
And is that, and so to my question, the blueprint, it feels like with you being coming to your year, there's a blueprint of trust that you're creating within your organization. And I'd like for you to dive deeper into what that looks like as you're moving ahead, and for people that are watching you who can, support and jump into what you're building here.
Yeah, I think I've really, like I said, I really like nerding out on operations and data but I know that I have to like keep a balance of that and not like avoid peopling.
Yeah.
So I've tried to like really maintain a balance of like making sure that I have time for like one-to-ones with people or, things just like pop up. And, I've had great conversations with like tenants in the building that are part of organizations and, like just chatting with the artists or the coworkers. And so I feel like making myself accessible and like being a part of the culture, not just like some mystery person
Yeah.
that's like, maybe running things where people like don't know how to reach them or like whatever. I've really tried to like immerse myself in the community too, to make sure that I just have an idea of like what's going on. And a lot of the programs and things that we've created have happened very organically, whether it's the Care Fund or some of the exhibitions that we've had in the past. It was like really cultivated by people and relationships that already existed. So I just try to be a part of the culture. Unity Hall.
And on that note, even in why we're having this conversation right now, we want to know, what are the upcoming initiatives, events, timely, that folks that are watching can run and tell their friends about?
Right.
So I want to give this space for Ash. Let people know what they're missing out on, please, so they can get.
Yes. Yeah. So this has been a year of growth. So one of the first things we're going to be doing is having a fundraiser, like a community fundraiser get together. It's going to be on June 25th from 5 to 8. Tickets start at $10. Like that was really important to us to make it sure that it's accessible. And yeah, we're basically taking up the whole building, going to have some fun. And it's called Rooted in Community. And it's just like really grounding us in like what we've done so far, like the history, how this last year's been, how we've grown, and like where we plan to go in the future. And then also we have an open call for artists for an exhibition called To Baltimore with Love. So we are looking for 7 artists to participate in an exhibition that runs from August 1st to September 12th. And so we're really looking for artists that love this city, make art about this city, and have 2D work that they want to display here. So we've been fortunate to get funding from the Mary Ann Connolly Fund in support of artists. And so they have contributed to allow us to do 2 exhibitions. And so this is the first one to really kick it off. So we really want artists to participate and be a part of it, but also we're going to have an opening reception on August 1st to celebrate the artists, as well as an artist talk. And then we're also looking for board members.
Ooh.
That is very exciting. I believe we have 2 spots open, but I think if we get the right candidates, the board's definitely going to look at, how big we should expand. And I really want to see, folks that are passionate about fundraising or want to learn about fundraising, because you don't necessarily have to, have tons of experience, but, it's amazing what you can do to leverage your network and really, have people contribute, like even if it's a small amount, like just to sustain space. Because from my experience here, it's very hard to find funding for space. It's easier to find funding when a building is falling apart or, if it's undeveloped space, but sustaining spaces is extremely difficult because many foundations don't have a focus area or funding that is allocated to buildings, the places where things happen. A lot of times it goes towards programming. And space is such an important thing. Like I can't even count how many programs or groups we've absorbed because the place that they were operating in closed. And that includes youth programming. Last summer, we had a youth program that had been displaced like 3 times.
Wow.
And ended up in our space at the tail end of YouthWorks. And, so I've gotten involved with the Greater Baltimore Committee. We just became members of that. So I really want to like open up this conversation about like, what does it look like to, have all of us be like personally invested, for, corporations to be personally invested in sustaining these spaces. Just it's a matter of like cultural preservation and, it shouldn't be a privilege to access space.
Absolutely.
Especially for like rites of passage or bringing community together. That privilege is like wild to me. And it's so hard for community groups, for families that are low income and, just other folks to be able to find space when they need it most.
So based on that, from the community and collective space, you speak so eloquently on topics of accountability and representation. One of the reasons I enjoy speaking to you is your insight. What does shared leadership actually require from those who claim to represent others?
I think it requires making infrastructure that allows a constant feedback loop and power. Decision-making power, because the one thing that is like my biggest pet peeve, and you probably know this, is when people ask people for feedback on something that's already been developed,
Right.
had a long timeline, came out the other end, and to check a box, they want some people to like add some comments or, to say they did a thing. But what I always analyze is what power they had. When you invited them to that table, did they have the power to extend the timeline and send y'all back to the drawing board? Did they have power to veto if something could potentially be harmful? So when it comes to like shared leadership, I think that like true servants will create infrastructure that allows, first of all, accessibility in all areas. I'm talking about like for people that have hidden disabilities, people that have visible disabilities, parents, students, people that speak different languages. Like if you are truly like being a public servant to like the entire community, you need to spend most of your time figuring out a way to make it accessible for everyone before you even put pen to paper.
Amen.
That's it.
With my Be More project, the idea is that in order for there to be a healthy destination, there are key indicators. So from housing, transportation, public safety, this is this moment where I would love for you to ring the alarm, raise the flag, spill the tea. What specific, like in these areas that are required for there to be a healthy destination, what specific topic, trend, or issue do you believe should be uplifted right now, or that you would like to see more energy around?
Really, I think community responsibility in taking care of our youth and taking care of our elders. I think a lot of times, like, and I mean, it benefits everyone, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's not just about, it alleviates the burden of people that are like me, elder millennials that may be like taking care of parents and kids at the same time. But also, I think that there's value in kind of blending those two groups together, because the other thing that I'm a nerd on from my tech days is a knowledge transfer. And so I think that elders have a really important piece in, adding context to things and passing that on to kids, like kids having exposure so that they don't have to. I've worked with a lot of kids who feel like, the systems that were never built for them, that they're advocating around, they have to work so hard, and it robs them of the opportunity of like really being a kid. And I've been in those shoes. And I think a lot of times, folks that are elders have a lot of the answers, or at least like the context kit that allows them to be more powerful in their advocacy. But on the flip side, I think people forget about our elders and sometimes throw them away, or aren't patient enough to really like, listen without, being transactional. And like embrace storytelling. I think that people, definitely have to develop like active listening and empathy, like in that way. But I would just like to see us be very, very passionate and not individualistic about like supporting youth and supporting elders, like as a community responsibility. Because some people don't have family, like including, like my family situation. It's just me and my sister, you know what I mean? Like we have kids and like we don't have a village. So we've had to be very creative about developing the village. And I think if, more of our time was not spent fussing online.
Amen. Right, right.
Being like creating a village, whether that's like biological family or just like chosen family, whatever that looks like for you, I think would have such a powerful impact on our young people and our elders.
The reason why we want to talk to the everyday person that is doing extraordinary work is because even within our space, we're aware of resources that
Right.
are available for that particular issue. But in order to get that to the everyday person who is inundated with the online fussing and distraction and your own daily life, it's
Right.
continued to be missed. So I'm curious, Ash, can you share what that you hear, what resources or questions or insights that you believe the community should be seeking? Like, hey, did y'all even know that this was available here? People don't talk about it, but Dion, they should be going here. Or why isn't anyone saying, hey, I'm against this because of X? This I would love to hear from where you sit. What are those things that aren't being shared that you would like to bring attention to? Resources or questions?
And see, like the resources is where I struggle because I think that's one area where they do need to do like more robust outreach. Because
Mm,
I don't feel like that should be our job to like hunt down stuff. Like if a resource is available, like it needs to be like just out there and many times like the resources are managed by folks that aren't in deep community with the populations that they serve. So that's where I'm like, I don't really want to focus on the resources because I also know of my friends that do like deep community work that they end up competing against other organizations that do equally great work over like scarce resources and really have to like, perform to get a little bit of something, fund it, whether it's funding or capacity building support. So yeah, I would, instead of like chasing grants so much, I think, or resources or going to this one-time thing, I'd really just like to see people take a moment to try to analyze like where our resources are and why does it take so long for it to get to the folks that are deeply in community, like boots on the ground.
mm-hmm.
Like, so from a system standpoint, I think that we need to like not be looking for resources or sharing resources. We need to really be looking at the structures that make it hard for us to know that they exist or access them.
Can we speak more about that? Because we've had conversations about you have your legislators and just everyday folks who do not fully comprehend the impact or the challenges that change makers like you encounter in doing the work. Also, the impact of the burnout
Right.
that comes with hunting and fighting against each other in order to do your passion work. From where you sit, what are people, especially within legislation, missing from the impact of, because you're the first line of defense. I look at our change makers as the first line of defense, and if you are not there, you'll really see the challenges in an urban destination.
Yeah, I think that what I see, especially in Annapolis, is that you have folks that are able to say, "Hey, we're going to get this pot of money, we're going to put it here," right? But then when it comes to the community actually like accessing those funds, sometimes they're measured against things that prevent them from accessing the funds, right? Like if you know people that have been like deprived of, funding, disinvested, all these things, the folks that I know that do a lot with a little bit of money, like they don't have like time to be managing social media or building out logos and like all this stuff or having a strategic plan or even because like the needs of their community are so urgent.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I see people trying to like bridge that gap and help people like get to like a professional place that gives them more access to those things. But what I also see is that the folks that just have something pretty swoop in, take the funds and claim to serve a community that they don't have relationships with yet. They just have an idea, but because it's packaged in a certain way, I think it's almost like process gentrification in a way.
Whoa, that's a new
Yeah.
phrase.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm making it up, but that's
I
kind of what I
like
see
that
is
though.
like,
I don't, but I like. Uh-huh.
yeah. So it's like, the people that know how to play the game and maybe, aren't from here, but not, like they came in from other places, have all this marketing experience, know how to make something um, win a proposal or RFP or whatever the thing is. It's almost like a leg up, and it diminishes the work that's already being done. So I think that also for the folks that are funding things, when they're doing their evaluations, when they're accepting proposals, they really need to dig into not just the demographics of the people in the organization, because I feel like that is a way for people to be like, oh, it's diverse, but how many people are actually like rooted? Like what types of questions can you ask at the front end to make sure those folks are, like if you're asking like what's the demographics of the staff, ask them what zip codes they live in.
Amen. Mm-hmm.
Like that's a little bit deeper than, if you compare, I'm thinking in my head of some organizations that, if I know that all of them live in 21217 and they're up against a grant where maybe there was a grant writer and like all these like fancy things, but that the folks that are doing the work don't have to prove impact, or it's going to be much easier for them to prove impact and the outcomes that they intended to have versus somebody that's going to be going into a community that they don't belong to and trying to serve them, but not like in community with them. It's not like cultivated organically. So yeah, it's just, I think it's a bunch of things. I don't think that the legislators are wrong for securing funds. I think that we just need to, as a community, we need to keep a closer eye on where they're going, what may have hurt us in the application process. Also, as a person who receives funding, we're supposed to be in partnership with a lot of these foundations. So we should also be offering them suggestions about how to modify their processes to ensure that it has the impact that they want.
Ashley, one, I think you outlined real tangible steps that could be incorporated if you are intentional about doing that work. So I thank you for that. I'm curious in knowing, when you look at the Ash who's here now, like you've shared that you were once a student who could have easily been overlooked. What would the younger version of yourself say to the Ash today who's shaping space in Baltimore?
I'm such a crybaby. Oh gosh. I mean, not a lot of people know this, but when I moved here, I was unhoused. And so I left Wilmington, Delaware in a car, came here because to me, the city felt similar to Wilmington. And I knew I couldn't stay there. And I was like, I just want to start over. And I think my younger self would be like shocked because in high school, most of the people that like see a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, their interactions with me, they rarely heard me talk. Like I dealt with something called selective mutism. So I was like painfully shy, like painful, like social anxiety. So even like having conversations like this, like were just not possible for me. So I think that my younger self who poured herself into art, as my way of like expressing myself, talking, I don't even think I could have imagined back then. I think I'd probably write myself a note saying, I'm very proud of you.
You would slide yourself a note.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. That's powerful, Ash, because the work that you're doing is for a lot of folks that feel like they don't have a voice. What keeps you going? Because this is not easy. And I'm speaking to you as a mother. I'm speaking to you as a mother in a city that perception can be much harder on us, and make those that live here feel like the only result for them is to leave.
Yeah.
But you know the gift that's here. So what keeps you going? Because this is not easy work.
Joy. I mean, being able to talk to people, I love people so much. And it's so crazy because I know I just told you I like barely talked,
Yeah.
but ever since I like started talking and really like found my voice, like I think even back then I was just like such a people watcher and just like really enjoyed like the way that people communicate, like the way that they make jokes, like they're just like silly. Like that's part like keeps me going. Cause I can have like a terrible day, right? And like laughing in my house with my husband and my son, or like at our animals who are wild, um, is like just the perfect reset. And I have a great group of friends that are a hot mess. So that joy piece for me has been like so healing because I think that, you know, up until yeah, I think one of the things that broke me out of it was actually running for office. I just always back then I was somebody that like didn't feel like I deserved things,
Mm.
or almost like that I was like always going to be operating from a place of like survival.
Mm.
And I think that over like the past few years, that survival's like turned into purpose,
Mm.
which has been like very just like healing and just full circle. And so, yeah, joy, 100%. Joy, laughing at memes, all the things.
Let me ask you for your advice for those that are listening, knowing that the mission is to empower the person who looks at Ash and says, well, Ash is the executive director of Baltimore Unity Hall. She should do it. I see a problem. Ash, because of the position she's in, she should do it. What advice do you have to that person who's quick to point, but doesn't feel empowered to do themselves?
Yeah, I always push back and say we should do it. Yeah, friend, let's lock elbows and like go do a thing, like for real. Because I'm only one person, like I don't need to, it's not helpful for me to, you know, do all the things, try to take all the credit for, you know what I like, it's just not, it's not sustainable. And everybody has to take care of themselves. And you know, you can get hit by a bus like anytime. And it's just like, you know, you can't, like, to what end,
That's
friends? Like, it can't always be me, but I love that I've kind of created, both in like the way that I ran and the way that I work and things. I try to create opportunities. I try to look for people who, you know, just need an opportunity or are curious enough to like learn something they don't know, and or we can learn together. And yeah, it's a we project. It's not a me project because I
you know,
don't. I mean, I sometimes I look like I do a lot of stuff, but really it's just me sitting at home like doing social media shenanigans and like also buffer. I schedule them posts.
you so keeping on that same frame of question. For those that point and they say Ash should do it, the governor should do it, the mayor should do it. They just look at the
Right.
positions to do it. Is it still no, we should do it? Is that still
It has to be a real we though, too, because there's two things that I would love to see. First of all, increase in voter participation, but that means rebuilding trust with the electoral process, or people seeing themselves in the electoral process. Um, and that means that it can't be just one person. Like, even though you're tasked with doing the thing, you should still remember how you got there. And
mm,
then when things come across your desk, reach back to the folks that you knew when you ran were subject matter experts of that experience and ask them, tell me what to do. Because it's, even though you're in the seat and people are like, I trust that person to lead in this moment, at the end of the day, like if you're really about like consensus building, community building, your vote should be representative of the people that you serve, not what you like because you had the power to do it in that moment. I think that that's where like folks mess up.
Okay.
Is that they're like, I have the power to do this thing. I'm going to leverage my power. There's other things that people don't know about of why I had to make this decision. It's like, well, then you need to pause, because you can also delay decisions. So you can pause and you can make sure that you tap back into the community that got you there and make sure that you're not just making a knee-jerk decision because you have the power to do it. So I think, yeah, but it also, I think broadly what I've been like bearing witness to with just like electoral politics, party politics, is that people are craving something different and they want folks where it does feel like a community project, where it does feel like let's Mad Libs the bill, you know what I mean? And majority rules. Like, I think that that's how you kind of build public trust. And, you know, I think that where I see folks losing power, which is a good thing, are folks that are like strategists that are used to operating from a place of where, you know, candidates, people in leadership are very polished, very credentialed. I barely graduated high school. And, you know, I've had all, like I said in the past, I've had all these like challenges and things, but it leads to like such a richer conversation when I'm sitting in these rooms where people didn't imagine like somebody like me could be. And it also gives a message to kids who are struggling that they should have the audacity to snatch up all the seats and can. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that, yeah, I think that when it comes to like these savior things, it's not, we need to be able to see ourselves in those seats.
Yes, ma'am. I agree.
And not sit around and wait. But also we shouldn't be cannibalizing those people from our community that step up to fill those seats. That's the other thing. There is a gap. So when somebody does win an election, I think one of the things that I've been having in conversations nationally is that there needs to almost be a strategic plan of like, what does this term look like? So that day one, I know I can always refer back to this thing and know like how I should be moving. And I actually wrote myself a letter when I got elected before I got sworn in. And I was like, here's a pep talk letter to myself. Here's what I said I was going to do. And there's been times where some values like conflict with each other. Yeah. And I have to choose which one of the values I got to lean into. But a lot of that comes from like me tapping back into community. And if I can't make a decision, I will abstain. If I feel like I don't have, that's always an option too. But sometimes people feel like it's black or white. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with slowing down the process or saying, the next time this process happens, y'all got to give me all the information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. So I'm winding down now. I wanted to ask you, we believe the model that we're trying to create is that you're honoring the value of lived experience.
Yep.
And grassroots leadership. So how can people financially support your work, your initiatives, your mission?
Definitely donate to Baltimore Unity Hall. It is such an important space. I mean, I would just love to be able to build on what we're already building. It is definitely tough to like manage a building. Things happen. HVAC goes up, water, hot water heaters, like all types of things break, right? And so being in this role, I really see how we've lost so many buildings. Like we've lost buildings that are beautiful, historic, like the ability for them to stay safe. And part of that is because we haven't done a good job at like telling the story of why like people need to contribute, or just all the magic that happens in a building separate from the programming. So I would definitely encourage folks to come out to our fundraiser to hear about all those things. Oh, and the theme is florals. So if you miss Preakness and you want to wear your fancy dress, It's a perfect opportunity to do like a do-over or whatever.
So wait, and the florals is for which event? So
it's for the fundraiser, June 25th. Yeah,
June
rooted
25th.
in community.
So, because do know that Dion is going to make it her business. While I have you here, I do think that it is important to acknowledge that I lost my father. He transitioned 3 months ago, and I remember sitting with the weight of what's next and the idea of honoring his life. And Ash, I sent you a text message like, hey, my daddy's gone. I need to do some type of celebration and I don't know where to go. And if it was not for Baltimore Unity Hall, if it was not for the Care Fund, we would not have had that opportunity, my family, my friends, colleagues, to come together and to send my father off that way. And your team, your staff, the love was so intentional. The building was beautiful. It, for those that traveled to Baltimore to experience this, because I'm, as you know, the Gullah country, that Georgetown, South Carolina, to travel to Baltimore, when they drove down the street and they see the clean street, the clean lobby, the linens, what it takes, the AC, the bathroom clean, the things. When you're hosting, you're inviting someone to your house, your home. That is how you treat it. And I have to say, on behalf of my entire family, I am thankful and grateful to you and your team. And will continue to support and want to leverage this as an opportunity to get more people in alignment with what you're doing, Ash, because what you're doing is brilliant. And I just want to say thank you.
Oh, of course. That Care Fund, for anyone that doesn't know, it's the Community Aid and Repass Equity Fund. And like, it is challenged with all the other expenses going on, like, like just laying a family member to rest, or even the other purpose of it is community organizing. Like when it's not a formal organization, it's just a bunch of people getting together to like figure something out, but they need space. It allows us to, it's almost like a mutual aid fund. So people contribute to the fund as individuals. And we had some funders that donated to it to allow people to just access space for free, but also making sure that we have our, our utilities and all those other things covered to allow us to do that. And yeah, the Care Fund has been like so impactful, so powerful. And I'm so happy that, like that you were able to have that moment and really to all the folks that have received support from the Care Fund, who are also now contributors to the Care Fund. So it's like really just, people paying it forward and making sure that that isn't a barrier to people like accessing space. And they know that that Care Fund is there for them.
That's the blueprint. That's the model that if we were to imagine every space work, you're putting in to take out to put back in. So it's that reaching back model that you're speaking of. And I actually do continue to push, and people are watching, and my prayer is that they watch and then mimic, because that's what makes us great. So thank you, Ash, for your time. And with that, good people, that is #MyBeMore. What's the 410 from Ashley Esposito, Executive Director of the Baltimore Unity Hall, and so much more.
I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. Even if it means you gotta leave me and you don't wanna be baby. Look, baby, I'm straight. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great.